Let's talk now to Victoria Sereda, Senior Fellow, Forum of Trans-Regional Studies, who, as always, joins us virtually from Germany. Good morning to you, Victoria. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning.
Let me begin with the flurry of activity that's happened back in Ukraine over the last 24 hours or so. The UN Secretary General calling for the demilitarization of Zaporizhzhia, the energy and reconstruction deal signed between Turkey and Ukraine. Do you see, first of all, the idea that the Zaporizhzhia plant should be demilitarized having any traction, particularly because the Russians have said no?
For Ukrainians, this issue is extremely sensitive because in the recent past, Ukraine had already survived through nuclear power plant explosion. So for all Ukrainians, this is extremely important and sensitive to demilitarize this or this object as soon as possible, because all people in the country remember how it was during the Chernobyl. And we also know that not only Ukraine was part of the issue, but also many neighboring countries were suffering from that. So the same key issue is with Zaporizhzhia plant. Anything happens, this will be the global catastrophe, not only Ukrainian. And I think this is really insane to keep military personnel or any type of weapons on the site of the plant. So I think this is very important that certain talks and certain pressure will be put on the Russian side, and at least there will be delegation from the MAGATE side visiting the plant and making sure that at least it's as safe as possible at the moment.
Let's talk a little bit about the grain deal, which is the one thing that seems to be working at this point in time, succeeding. As at the last count, 25 ships have now been counted as having been loaded and on their way to the inspection sites, and then from there to various destinations. UN Secretary General Guterres is supposed to visit the Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul tomorrow as part of his trip to the region. Why do you think this deal seems to stand out as a success, even though on virtually everything else, there's broad disagreement?
I believe that at the very beginning of the deal, if you remember, there were a lot of worries because still Ukrainian infrastructure was shelled, and it needed some time to demine the waters to be able to transport those ships. But we understand how important is this globally, because both countries, and specifically Ukraine, played very important role in transporting essential food to different parts of Africa and Asian countries, global south. But still, what was discussed, that it's a long way to, but success is that it's happening, and it also created a ground for the new possible. We cannot say it's peace talks, but at least a ground for possibilities to discuss other pressing issues. For example, yesterday, the issue of Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant was discussed, an issue of Ukrainian prisoners of war and access to that. And we here see that because this is a global issue, that UN is taking very active role right now in trying to put certain pressure or helping with settlements and making sure that at least some smaller steps are happening.
Does it surprise you that Turkey, which has somehow managed to maintain good relations with both Russia and Ukraine during the course of this crisis, and in fact was one of the main mediators of that grain deal, is now entering into a reconstruction deal with Ukraine, energy cooperation and all that with Ukraine. Do you see this as perhaps mixing the peace negotiation role that it has played so far with a more patron-like role? Because the statement that we have from there says that they have taken that particular region that they are going to rebuild, which has Kharkiv in it, under their umbrella, so to speak.
I think that if we are talking about this infrastructure cooperation, Ukraine has a very long experience with Turkey. Actually, majority of Ukrainian roads for last 10 or 15 years has been built by Turkish workers. So I think it is not a new step. It's just an expansion or continuation. And if you're talking about the regions, we are constantly here in news that certain countries, EU countries, plead to help certain regions. So I don't see it as a patronizing from Turkey only. We have different sides will be helped by different countries which want to rebuild or help to rebuild Ukraine after the peace will be established. So it's not only Turkey. We have many other countries which participate in different types of programs about the reconstruction of the country.
You are in Germany, and you have been for quite a bit. And one of the issues that has cropped up as this conflict has gone on is the impact that it has had on the EU member countries in terms of inflation, high energy prices, economic challenges, and all of that. Have you seen some kind of belief in Germany where you are that there is need for these countries, which are now having these economic challenges, to more or less push for peace at this point, rather than try to encourage the conflict by either side?
I think we have to differentiate certain media discourses, and we have a wide spectrum of parties present both in the country and in media. And of course, within this spectrum, we do have some populistic parties which are trying to scare population that there will be very high prices for energy and many other issues. So let's push Ukraine to peace talks before it's too late. But at the same time, if we look generally at the population, and recently there was a survey, and majority of population are supporting Ukraine and supporting the situation in Ukraine. So I do not think that this is general mood. This is only one part of the spectrum, both political and media, trying to use certain issues to gain attention or to mobilize their voters.
In terms of peace talks themselves, which you and I have had cause to talk about over the last couple of months, have you seen the needle move in any direction in terms of a motivation for peace? Because it does appear now that there's a lot of movement, but whether that movement is in the direction of peace. I mean, if you have the grain deal, you have the reconstruction deal, you have perhaps the demilitarization of the Zaporizhzhia plant. This requires cooperation from a number of parties, including Ukraine and Russia and so on. Do you think that this, reasonably could be seen as a basis to even begin to discuss a possibility of peace talks?
I believe, as we discussed, that we do have a certain space for discussion that was established due to the grain deal, and now it is opening to new issues which are very pressing. But at the same time, as a sociologist, I'm looking at this situation within the society. And within the society, there are two very opposite moods, in the sense that on one side, people really are wishing for a ceasefire because of the heavy casualties, and situation is very, very problematic on the front line. A lot of people are dying every day, and a lot of civilians are dying or wounded every day. There are constant shellings of big cities almost every second or third day. Certain infrastructural objects such as the universities or I don't know, schools are hit. So it's not only military infrastructure that is hit. On the other side, this really mobilized the civilians in a sense that knowing what is happening on occupied territories, which are not controlled by Ukrainian government, a lot of terror, the case of Olenivka, the cases of Bucha and many others are showing that there are no sense of safety. People are immobilized. There are filtration camps. There are terror. People disappear, are kidnapped, and so on. So understanding that Ukrainians are mobilized against a peace treaty because they don't feel safe about what is happening on all territories occupied by Russia. And they also have a long understanding beginning from 2014 and even before that any treaties are not respected by Russia. So these two fears about the both military and civilian population on occupied territories and that these treaties will not be fulfilled pushes people to wish that fights will be continued till all Ukrainian territories will be free.
But then at the same time that is happening, there have been calls by some of the other parties, which in the case of Ukraine, have backed Ukraine in this matter, but they're saying that, look, if we can move to peace, that would also be helpful, both for Ukraine and for those who are backing Ukraine. And there are those who have said that, look, Russia too appears to, be reaching some kind of stalemate now in terms of advances, in terms of the amount of personnel it can deploy, in terms of equipment and so on. So that leverage, there is leverage now for peace talks, but there seems to be the will that is missing, not the leverage.
I believe that, as Zelensky expressed it, that there is a window of possibilities, but then we have to see not a weapon or not human rights and civilians' rights problems on those territories. We don't see any steps from the side of the Russia showing that at least humanitarian rights, civilians' rights are observed. So people don't see any safety, and this prevents them from believing we can at least start. We do have the possibilities right now, but since the Russia is not really showing any respect to the rights of the civilians and war prisoners, it's extremely difficult even to launch these talks, because you are leaving your citizens on those territories just to have to be killed or have to be tortured or to have to be, I don't know, to have very bad experiences. And this prevents the government from the possibility to make certain steps. So I think that if UN will interfere more actively and try to push Russia to fulfill at least those humanitarian and civilian rights which are supposed to, or rights of prisoners of war, this might be the sign that now there is a possibility, a window for further negotiations to start.
Indeed, and one will hope that those who can do that are in fact listening to you and to others who are in the position to say so. Victoria Sarita, thank you so much for your time this morning. As always, please continue to stay safe as we continue to monitor this conflict and hope that it comes to an end very soon. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.